Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, we're going to be talking to Maryam Munaf. She is the founder of Healthy Genie, a food business out in Ontario. So, Maryam, tell me a little bit about what Healthy Genie does, what kind of products you produce, and the backstory on how you got started.
Sure, yeah. Hello, first. I'm Maryam, and Healthy Genie is basically a women-owned food company. We specialize in date-based snacks and spreads. They're all organic and vegan, and we try to use only 2 to 3 ingredients per product. The mission behind Healthy Genie is to prove that healthy can be delicious and taste just like a treat. The reason behind why I created Healthy Genie, I'm a nutritionist by profession. So
Okay.
I studied nutrition and food technology. I worked in the business for over 10 years back in UAE, more famous for Dubai.
Yeah.
And my passion for healthy eating was always there. So this was part of who I am. Moving to Toronto in 2013, I was actually missing those delicious date treats that we had back at home. And back then, there was a gap in the date market. So I felt like people were enjoying dates as a healthy alternative to sugar in their baking or in their date squares. But it wasn't easy for you to find like a stuffed date or a nice date treat in those regular markets. So the first product that I actually created with Healthy Genie was stuffed dates. So those medjool dates, stuffed them with nuts and sold them at farmers markets.
Yeah, very good. And then you pivoted into, and you sent me some samples, which I really appreciated.
Yep.
So into the date spreads then, correct?
Yes, I did. And the reason that happened was as a food entrepreneur, you're first super excited about your first product, which I was. I love the dates. I still create them seasonally, by the way. So they're still available for people to order around Christmas or other holidays. The pivot to the spread happened in 2017. I was actually, it was a funny thing because it was a last minute decision to create that for my time at the farmers market. I'm like, let me try the spread today. So I had these small jars, filled it in with dates and tahini, and then printed my own labels, took them to the market, and I sold out. So I was like, interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's the small story behind how it started.
Yeah. And so now, so the date and tahini was the original, and then now you have the date and chocolate. I haven't tried the tahini one yet, but my son and I, we were eating the chocolate one on some pancakes the other morning. And I mentioned this before we started recording, but he's kind of grew up on Nutella. And so it was really interesting to get his take on this. So, and he doesn't eat dates normally. He doesn't even think, I don't think he even really knows what it is or that it is a healthy alternative. And so I was really curious to see how he'd respond to it. And he's like, yeah, this is as good as Nutella. Like I definitely enjoy this. Super sweet, like very much a sweet treat. And has just a wonderful texture to it as well. I really, really enjoyed it. And so did it take you a while then to kind of come up with the exact recipe for this? Was it a lot of trial and error, or was it relatively simple because you're only dealing with, like you said, 2 or 3 ingredients in everything that you do?
Yeah. So the spread itself is, by the way, very traditional to the Middle East. So
Okay.
my own roots, I come from that. Like my parents are from the Middle East, and this is a very traditional spread over there. So the dates and tahini, it's very close to your, I would say, the peanut butter and jelly concept in North America.
Yeah.
That's why dates and tahini in the Middle East. So when you crave a sweet treat, our pantry always has the dates, tahini. We would mix them up in the kitchen, have it with some fresh bread or crackers, and that was it. So it's
Mm.
not a new concept in our region. It's probably a new concept in North America. And as you mentioned something very important, and that's one of the things, one of the key elements in creating this is that not everyone who eats this actually had a date before. So it's kind of an easy way for people to eat dates just as a spread, as a form of a spread rather than the actual fruit, because it's uh, it's still not like a staple in everyone's pantry to have a bunch of dates for you to snack on every day. But dates are a superfood. So having them in the form of a spread is actually just as good as having them directly. Back to the recipe, the traditional one, even the traditional one, because when you're trying to commercialize a recipe, it stops being a recipe, it turns into a formula. So as you scale
Mm.
up, as you're trying to go from, I just prepared 20 jars, whipped them up in my kitchen to something that would be, uh, produced in a manufacturing facility, that takes work. So yes, it took me at least a couple of years to get to you know, the formula that I want it to be, because you also are creating something that needs to taste almost the same every single time.
Yeah.
So consistency is key, and it's not easy. So I did a lot of experimenting. I'm a recipe developer myself. Like I've done that work before, but on this product, it wasn't the easiest thing to do, even though it sounds very simple. Like people would say they're just 2 ingredients or 3 ingredients, but to perfect
Yeah.
that flavor is really tough because you're working with different percentages each time. And this is why earlier when we were discussing the jar, I asked you about the batch size, because I can go back to that formula and look it up and say, oh, so this worked. That kind of feedback. This is
Yeah.
how I've actually developed this recipe. Chocolate is almost everyone's favorite. So coming up with a chocolate flavor was something I knew I wanted to do, but it's the one that took me the longest to perfect. And this is why I'm very excited about what you just said.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was definitely a hit in our house. And the one thing, anybody who is concerned about healthy living at all is trying to remove the refined sugars from their diet as much as possible. And so to have a spread for like we do a lot of pancake eating in this house and waffles and whatnot, and
Yeah.
that's always the weekend treat. And so we're always using jellies and jams and stuff and syrups, but the problem with a lot of that is that they are using refined sugars, and to find an alternative to Nutella actually is a huge motivator for me because it is really just a bunch of refined sugars, not healthy at all. And so to have a healthy alternative that my son actually still really enjoys, that was fantastic. So yeah, it's definitely a hit. So you're onto something for sure, which you already know because you've been doing this for a few years. Now speaking of that, the duration of the business, you started it in 2018.
No, I actually started in 2016.
2016. And so we're recording this in the spring of 2022 right now.
Mhm.
And you had mentioned that the business is it's almost like a new business because you've pivoted, you've changed a little bit just recently in the last year or two. And so can you tell me about the evolution of the business, how you got to where you're at now and what those transitions maybe were? I know you already mentioned that you started out on the stuffed dates, moved
Yep.
into now the spreads a lot more, but there has been some changes through that journey too, right?
Yes. So it's a learning curve all the time for us entrepreneurs. So basically, when I started, we all do it differently. I took a food commercialization program here in Toronto to be able to learn how to commercialize a recipe. So that was my first step. And moving from the farmers market, that's when you do your market research and understand what customers want and your pricing and all of that. I actually managed to get a few retail stores to carry my dates during that time, and good names like McEwen's and Summerhill Market,
Mm.
Harvest Wagon, all the specialty gourmet stores in Toronto.
Yeah.
Uh, Through that journey, I had children. And as a mom and as an entrepreneur who's trying to, build something that I would like to think is going to be something my kids are going to take over in the future, this business was very important to me. So one of the key things I would say to people is the first thing you need to decide is what kind of business are you building?
Mm.
So from the get-go, it's not a business that I just want to, make money out of. Obviously, we want a lucrative business, but the journey was I want to grow a name and I want to grow a good product that people actually can enjoy and trust. So that's how the journey was evolving in that, okay, once the dates went into the market, I realized they're very labor intensive and it was difficult for me to continue to produce them without building a big team of people that would help me out. I tried that for a little bit, realized that doesn't work within my own, lifestyle.
Yep.
And that's when I tested the spread. I'm like, let me test it out on a day and see how people like it. Got really good feedback, continued to produce the spreads during that season of farmers markets. And at the end of it, realized that that's my scalable product. That's the one I want to focus on while
Hmm.
still offering the dates because I've already built that reputation with a few customers based on the dates
Yep.
themselves. So the evolution happened between 2017 and 2019 when I was working on the different flavors of the spread while perfecting that formula so that it tastes the same every single time. I
Yep.
was still working from a commercial kitchen, hiring a team of people to help me and produce those spreads through that. We moved from hand filling to using a piston filler, which is a machine that pumps your spread into your jars. That was like a progress, and I could produce, like 300 jars a day. But then I also wanted to move forward and scale it up where, I can focus on the other sides of the business and once the production's perfected. So that was the journey of moving, I know I've talked about different aspects of it, but yeah, that's how things evolved. And you pivot, and COVID obviously happened, which
Yeah.
pushed me even further into, it has to be the spreads that I work on right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so COVID hits, and then you were telling me you have a 4-month-old baby at home right now, too.
Yes, yes, I do. I do. And when I found out I was having him is when that was my wake up call. That was when, you know what, you're either doing this full on or you're just dancing around every month and making it work. Because you as an entrepreneur, you're either completely in it or it's a beautiful idea and you want to keep it on the side. So as a
Yeah.
side hustle, it's good. But is that what you want? Then again, it goes back to that decision. Mine wasn't that I wanted this to be a side hustle. I want to be full on with this. I want this to grow and I can see it growing because obviously it's been 7 years. So I can see how date-based products, let's say in the US, have burst now and they're growing. So I know that the market is ready and hungry for this kind of product.
Yeah, and so like the balancing act between, motherhood, family life, growing the business, and the business is really growing, right? You're building your system still, you're
Yes.
finding co-packers, you're trying to maybe automate or build some support around you in different aspects of the business so you can focus on, growing the business as opposed to working kind of on the assembly line, so to speak, or the manufacturing. And tell me a little bit about that. Like, how do you do that balancing act? Because that's one of the biggest challenges that I think most entrepreneurs have is trying to balance the work and the, life side of things, the personal side of things.
Very true. So I would say number one is having a good partner helps on the personal side of things. So
Yeah.
I had to have that conversation where, this is important to me. I want to be able to give this business the time it needs to grow. So once we had that conversation and we agreed on how to make this work, I get to do things like be present in my business while my partner, husband, helps me with the kids. So that was one side of things. The other one, which I think is important for entrepreneurs to learn in general, is to know when to ask for help
Yeah.
and to reach out, whether it's your network, whether it's your family, whether it's you understanding that this job you probably can do really well, like part of your business, but you're not supposed to be doing it. You're supposed to be focusing on something else. So to learn when to delegate and when to, allow someone else to help you. Whether it you hiring someone, whether you're asking for resources, that's very important.
So did that come naturally to you, the ability to kind of reach out and ask for help and do the delegation and everything else, or is that something that was you had to learn along your journey?
I actually know how to learn it the hard way because
Yeah.
as an entrepreneur, it gets overwhelming. So I decided that I'm going full on. I almost got myself into a burnout
Mhm.
kind of feeling when I've booked so many meetings with people and I was trying to, scale up the recipe, find a manufacturer, hire someone to help you with sales, and while focusing on social media, there are so many aspects of the business, and all of this, not accounting to the fact that I was pregnant
Yeah.
I had a family to take care of, and there was COVID. So too many things going on. And I reached a point when I realized that I wasn't focused. I wasn't enjoying any of it at that point,
Yeah.
to be honest. It was just too stressful. And I
Yeah.
was so stressed. I was tired and stressed, and it was taking a toll on me mentally and my body. And I realized that this is not really healthy. I'm Healthy Genie. I'm teaching people how to be healthy. I'm a nutritionist. I'm trying to create it takes you back. You want to sit down, breathe, and remember why you're doing this. Why did I want to start? And I had to sit down and remind myself. I actually had to go through an exercise of thinking, okay, so let's spend a week thinking that Healthy Genie doesn't exist. How does that make you feel? Are you less stressed? Are you happier, or are you sad?
Ah,
And I actually was very upset thinking that no, I really want to do this. So that kind of was like, okay, checklist. You do want to do this. You love it. Then let's go back to why we were doing it. And it took me a while to remind myself of, find that spark again where you're excited again. And it's hard, to be honest. It's very hard because you will hear a lot more no's than yeses starting up. And a lot of people are going to tell you that food businesses are tough.
yes.
Most people will fail, and this is a tough market that you're trying to, get into. So yeah, it takes a lot of work, but it also, sorry, a lot of work, and you need to surround yourself with the right kind of people, is what I want to say. I have a good group of people around me, and they understand my business. And it's not just family, by the way. You need the right network of maybe food entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs that are with you in that same pool where you're trying to struggle and build. And that kind of network is where you can just send a text on Slack and tell someone, I'm struggling. I can't find glass jars for my next production. And someone goes by, oh, I know someone. Here we go. So that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Even if you want to just tell them, I just hate my life right now. It's so hard. And I want someone to understand. So I do go back to a few of these groups, and I've been lucky. But there was a time in my life when I wasn't accepting anyone's help, when I wasn't even asking for it. And I felt like I was failing if I couldn't do it all by myself. And
Yeah.
that was the mistake. And yeah, that's the only thing I would tell people is always ask for help. And it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's amazing once you get over that hurdle of I don't know, feeling that you're not good enough or that
Yeah.
you're failing or something like that, and actually do ask for that help. How many people do step up? Like especially within the entrepreneurial community, it's just remarkable how much support there actually is there if you can tap into it. Now, one thing that I want to circle back to is a comment that you made that with regard to the spark. You had to get that spark back, the passion, the why you started this business to begin with. Because I think that's really a great point, because there's so many people, if you don't have that, the why, if you don't really know why you're doing it, if it's just because you think you're going to get rich off of it or something like that, it's a struggle, it's a battle, it's a long process for most businesses. And so there are a lot of soul searching that you have to do in those earlier years, because things are up and down. You have some positives, some wins that really elevate you, but then there's a lot of challenges, and there's depression and stress and everything else that can creep into it. And if you don't understand the why, if you don't have that core passion, you're never going to make it, I don't think. And so that was really interesting, what you were saying about how you did some exercises to go back and really look at that. And I loved that. Okay, well, if I sat with this idea of not having the business for a week, like how do I feel after that? And
Yeah.
really refining that why. That's brilliant. I really
Yeah,
like
that
that.
came from someone that I always speak to in terms of the entrepreneurship side of things. And it was a great tip. It was a tip from that she gave me. It's like, try it out. Just try this out for a week and come back and see what you want. So yeah.
Yeah. So what is your why? Why is this important to you? Why do you get up every day, and struggle, through that entrepreneurial journey that has gotten you to this point? What really motivates you?
Okay, so there are several things. I would say definitely my upbringing helps. My father is an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and we were raised to always question, things. And he always pushed us. Even my mom, she was never like an entrepreneur herself, but like she always told us, don't stop at this. Always try to think of how we can evolve and what more you can do. So that was definitely part of my childhood where, I grew up believing that it would be, exciting for me to own my own thing and work at it. But then the reason behind Healthy Genie itself comes from the fact that, again, I love to teach people how to have a healthy relationship with food.
Hmm.
That's something I'm very passionate about. I knew I wanted to be a nutritionist since I was 12 years old. I loved it. I just loved it when I studied it. It's a science. You learn how food impacts you. And as I became a mother, I became even more concerned with what I'm feeding my own children. And I felt the responsibility that if I'm going to add a product to this world and I'm going to offer it to people, I want it to be good for them. I want to feel good about the fact that someone had just opened up a date and tahini jar and had it,
Yeah.
and that it's good for you. And
Yeah.
obviously, there's that story behind it where it resembles my upbringing and my roots and that side of the world where dates are, this magical fruit that everyone loves and enjoys. And it feels like I'm offering people a piece of my own home
Yes.
and in a jar. Like it kind of feels this way. And it's nice because I've been here long enough to know that Canada is amazing when it comes to diversity and people offering their own pieces of their own homes back here, sorry, over here, which becomes your own home. Like Canada becomes home, but then you still want to have that piece of your own self there, and there's room for it. So I feel like it starts with the grocery store because you walk around and you see all these products that are famous for, different parts of the world. And I want to have that. I want to be the person who creates that product or part of that group of people that are creating these products. I'm not the only person with a date product here, but just I want to be part of it.
Yeah. 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 That's really cool. Okay. So let's talk about some of the lessons that you've learned beyond what we've already talked about. So, as you were growing your business, as you were pivoting it, as you're having babies and having to deal with that added layer of
Yeah.
responsibility and time commitment and stuff, what lessons have you learned along the way that might help other entrepreneurs as they're navigating through a similar challenge?
One thing, which is relative to anyone with a business, is stop comparing yourself to others.
Hmm.
Social media is a great platform to grow, but it's one of these things where I would, at the beginning, spend time looking up other entrepreneurs and thinking, oh my God, this person is doing better than me. Oh, that person is already in that store. Oh, that comparison, like it could be good if you're doing it to push yourself so that you'll be like, you know what, I can be there. Let's work. Let's be positive. But it's a bad thing if you start spending time thinking, oh, if you know, like it's a tough thing. I'm not growing enough. I'm not fast enough. So just be careful with that.
Yeah.
A lot of things seem bigger than they do. Like maybe people will look at the Healthy Genie from outside. They think, oh, she's already in whatnot stores. She has 20,000 followers. She probably has this, easy peasy everyday life. And it's not. I'm here to
Yeah.
tell you there's an everyday struggle to push this business forward.
Yeah.
So don't compare yourself, except if it's going to help you grow. In the food world, do not spend too much time on your first packaging. They call it the MVP, the minimum viable product. So don't think about your first label as the only label you'll have. So don't spend too much time worrying too much about it. I spent too much time worrying about what goes on the label and how the jar and the packaging, that it took up too much time at the beginning. And
Hmm.
I can guarantee that you're going to go through at least 5 to 10 different variables of that. So you don't want to spend too much time on the first three.
Yeah, yeah, and that's an interesting point because most of the food companies that I talk to, that's one of the things they always seem to be working on, and it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if they're in their first year or in their 10th year, they're still revamping their labels. That's
Yeah.
it's a real thing.
Packaging changes and requirements change every day.
Yeah,
And you learn things as you start shipping your product
yeah,
that we're not working with your, so you don't want to, again, just be open-minded to things changing.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, another person had given the advice of don't buy those massive batches of it to get the better price point because it will change. And so
Yeah,
that was his advice as well, which I thought was really on
I agree
point.
with that. Yes.
Yeah.
I have piles of old labels that I can't do anything with.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what about cash flow? Cash flow is one of those things that, well, as I say, cash flow is king. But for small businesses, man, it's the lifeline. So, how do you balance that as you're trying to grow the business and investing in different packaging and then you're using a co-packer that now you have to package or make
Yeah.
a bigger volume and managing all that as you're growing your business. What are the secrets to your cash flow management?
So I won't lie, I'm still learning how to do that, but I can tell you what I've faced in that you need to forecast, and there is a reason why there are business plans, and I know that most people don't like to write a business plan. They feel like it's too much. But if you do anything, and if I recommend anything that you should do from the very beginning when everything is just very fresh and new, is have at least like an Excel sheet where you throw
Yeah.
in all your numbers and figure out your expenses and forecast those. Because what happens is, if you say, for instance, I'm going to spend $30,000 on, scaling up, producing my first batch, and then I'm going to sell it. Let's say you started with that 30,000. I would tell people that most of the time, 100%, you're going to spend more.
Mm.
So don't be like, don't, I don't know, don't spend everything and then look at the bank and say, oh, I don't have anything. Because what's the point of scaling up and growing so quickly to the point where, okay, I have like 1,000 jars in a warehouse right now, but I have $0 to ship them
Yeah.
anywhere.
Yeah.
So just be a bit more mindful of that, and numbers will change every day. Like look at COVID, look at shipping expenses. Like I came into this thinking it's gonna cost me an X amount of money to produce a unit, and that kind of increased by 30% within 3 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's a big oops. So you need to be able to have enough cash flow. And the great thing about Canada is there are so many grants out there. But that's work by itself, to be honest, for you to be able to tap into that.
Yeah, yeah. I grew up on a farm, and so that was one of the things. There's lots of different programs and assistance for farmers, and so there were some farmers that did a really good job farming the mailbox, is the term that I used to use, where they were getting into all the different programs that the government was. But I mean, that was a full-time job,
Yeah.
just trying to stay on top of that part of it. And then there was others who were more focused on the art of farming as well. So yeah, there's the programs out there. Definitely, if you can get into some of those, that's fantastic. But it's not the end all either. And so you still have to have a good product. You still have to have good systems. You still have to have a way to move that product through the market and then they layer in some benefits around grants and stuff. Then it can really turn into quite the success.
Yes. So there are a lot of like funding itself, and cash flow is something you can spend a whole podcast on, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah,
It's a learning curve for everyone. And I would say if you have room to delegate something, like this is where I'm at right now. I'm actually in the process of finding someone who could help me hone in on these grants and figure them out, because I can't do it on my own and then also manage the business. It's just getting too much.
yeah.
So, and there are people that can help you with that. Obviously, you have to hire them for that, but it's probably worth it if you get those grants.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's about knowing where your shortcomings are, right? Whether that's just most of the stuff is figure outable, right? We can figure it out because we're all smart,
Yes.
but we just don't have the time
No.
to do it all. And so it's about getting a little more bench strength in terms of support and bringing in the experts who can know exactly where to look. And at the end of the day, it's probably going to be a much better investment for you to do that as opposed to investing your own time, because now it will no longer be a distraction into the growth of your business as well.
True.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think is going to be, to take your business to the next level, the next step that you want to take in your growth projector. What do you think is going to be the thing that is going to help you do that, or what challenge are you going to have to overcome in order to achieve that?
So I've just started literally in April with a distributor where we're moving into retail stores across Canada. So my next milestone would be growing that into at least 100 stores.
Okay.
That's my own target, and I would like to get there by end of summer. Being able to accommodate those purchasing orders is going to be how I grow. So I want to focus on that stream and being able to fulfill those requirements and fulfill those orders in a timely manner. And that's how I'm building my business on this side, because your business could be direct to consumer or could be wholesale. So from the wholesale side of my business to reach 100 stores, that's what I'm the work that I'm doing right now to be able to create a workflow environment that's smooth and easy and understandable. It's not an easy thing to get to, but that's my own milestone right now. And the other side of my business, which is the D2C on my online store, that's a different part that I want to at least grow. I have a good online community, which is good, but it took 2 years of me being 100% focused on just one channel, one social media channel. So
Yeah.
that's also in parallel to the growth in retail, which will take the next 3 to 4 months of my time. I want to be able to also accommodate the growth in my online shopping experience as well.
Yeah. And so what's going to allow you to do that, do you think? What hurdle do you have there that's going to be, on the retail distribution Canada-wide? You find a distributor, and then now it's a cash flow situation and making sure that you can, fill that channel with product. Now on the online, less of a need there from a scaling up rapidly anyway on the production side, but now there's maybe a different skill set. What is the hurdle there that you have to overcome, do you feel?
I need to start creating a better user experience. So when people
Okay.
land on my website, so the first step I took was I actually updated the website. I worked with someone to do that,
Yeah.
and there are still issues to to work on. The main hurdle would be traffic on your website, so more eyes on the product. But to be honest, because my product is a food product, so to be able to do that, to get people to, land on the page and actually taste it, I also need to do some offline work.
Yeah.
People are finally, like, COVID is still there, but people are finally opening up to having, sampling events again, something I did really hard back in 2016. So doing some offline marketing campaigns like sampling events, farmers markets, food shows, while asking people, collecting their emails and asking them to join our newsletter, because that's the best way. I mean, social media is great, but I feel like a healthy email list would be my next milestone for my online side of things, because that's when you can nurture people who are actually really interested in your product.
Yeah, yeah, completely. You have the right strategy there, so you can capture their attention and their interest in social media, but get them into a list as quickly as you possibly can. Because the problem with social media is they've all converted to this pay to play kind of model, in which if you have 20,000 followers, you're only actually reaching with an organic post about 1% of those now is all that will
True.
ever see the post that you make. And so if you can drop something into their inbox, or you can text something to them, or some other means of actually getting that content in front of them, then you're way better off. But you still don't want to abandon social media. You want to use social media to build the list, and then use the list to nurture, just like what you said. So you're on the right path there.
Yeah.
Okay.
A
So
lot of work to do.
yeah, yeah, there's always something, right? That's that list that never ever ends in terms of
No.
the things that we need to do as entrepreneurs. So Maryam, how would people find you then if they wanted to try some of these delicious date treats that you've sent my way?
Healthygenie.ca is the website and online store. That's the easiest way to be able to browse and find the products. Um, the retail stores, they can check out my social media. I'm mostly active on Instagram,
Yep.
and the handle is healthy_genie.
Okay.
They can find that through the website as well. And that's where I will people can, I'm still the person handling that right now. So if they send me a DM, I'm the one replying.
Okay.
And there's my email, of course. But yeah, hopefully, if they start following me on social media, they can find out what stores I'm in, and then if they join the email list, hopefully that's the next step, which is continuously to update them through emails, hopefully.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for that. And thank you again for sending me some of these samples. And take it from me, folks. This is such an amazing treat. You actually have a healthy sweet treat, which for people who have sweet tooth like me, that is nice to be able to reach into the fridge and grab, as opposed to some of the other alternatives that are out there that aren't quite so good for you. So thank you, Maryam, for joining us today. And for those of you who enjoyed this episode, if you want to check out some other episodes, our archive is over at amplifyyourbusiness.ca. And if you happen to be an entrepreneur who has an interesting story that you'd like to share, there's an application form there so that you might be a future guest on Amplify Your Business. So thank you, everybody. And I wish you all a prosperous week.